To learn how to Tunisian crochet, I am going to show you and teach you how to do this with a larger hook. So I'm going to show you with a hook size 6. This is just a J10 6mm hook, and this is only for the demonstration. So to start off, we will make a slip knot and chains just like regular crochet. So I have my slip knot, and I'm just going to chain 10. So I have 10 chains, and with Tunisian crochet, this counts as our first loop. So we will not be chaining to make turning chains to build up the sides. So this is our first loop, and this right here is our first chain. Now we do not have to go into this first chain because we already have our first loop on our hook. But what we will do is we will insert our hook into the next chain, and we will yarn over by pulling that yarn through that chain. And now we have our first loop and our second loop. We will now go into the next chain and do the same thing. We will yarn over and pull that through. So now we have 3 loops on our hook, which is our first chain, second chain, and third chain. We are going to repeat this in each chain across. This is called our forward pass. And we should have 10 loops on our hook once we are finished. So we will count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 chains, and now we have 10 loops. We have a chain that's already made now on the bottom. And now to complete row 1, we will do a return pass. So we just completed our forward pass, but now we have to do a return pass to complete row 1. And to do that, this very first loop of our return pass, we will always excuse me, we will always yarn over and only pull through 1 loop. And for Tunisian crochet, that is what you do for the first stitch of the return pass for every row. Now every stitch after that, we will yarn over and we will pull through 2 loops. So that's 1 stitch and that's 2 stitches. To do our 3rd stitch, we will yarn over and we will pull through this loop and the next loop. We will pull through 2 loops. We will repeat this all the way across. So we will yarn over, pull that yarn through those 2 loops. Yarn over and pull that yarn through 2 loops. We will do this all the way across. We just completed row 1. I'm going to pull this up to hold my place, and now I want to show you what row 1 looks like so you can understand how to do row 2 and 3 and so on. So we have 10 stitches here. This is our first stitch, and there's a gap in between each chain, each stitch. So this is stitch 1, and we have a gap here. This is stitch 2, and we have a gap in between stitch 2 and stitch 3. And in between each stitch we have a gap. And for each stitch you will see these 2 vertical bars going upward. These are our stitches, these vertical bars. Here's our next vertical bar. You'll see we have this vertical bar here in the front, and we have an identical one in the back. Here's our 3rd stitch. So that's our vertical bar and our other vertical bar right there. And we have a gap. Here's our 4th stitch. This is our 5th stitch. Our 6th stitch. Our 7th stitch. So these chains that you see across the top and the bottom, you will not worry about those. Our stitches are these vertical bars right here, these 2 vertical bars in the middle. Those are our stitches. And I promise you will get the hang of this. This might seem confusing at first, but it's quite simple. So the stitch we will be doing for this eye mask is the knit stitch. It looks just like real knitting. It's very tight. It's not loose like regular crochet. It's very tight and very identical to real knitting. And trust me, you will get the hang of this. We will be doing the same thing. So once we do row 2, you will be repeating that same process every time. So for this eye mask, we will start down here and we will work our way up until we decrease right here on this side. So we will decrease for a few rows, then we will increase for a few rows to create this right here for the bridge of our nose, and then we will not decrease or increase, and we will do the same thing every row until the end here, just like the beginning. It's not hard at all. So to show you how to do row 2, we will insert our hook into that loop. We will pull this just like regular crochet. Now this first stitch, this one right here, we will not work into, but we will always have this loop. So this loop represents our first stitch. So we do not go into this chain here. We will always work into the second chain. Now the second chain here, those 2 vertical bars, one in the front, one in the back, what we will do is we will stick our hook right through the middle of those 2 bars, right through the middle. And that's our vertical bar. So we are right in the middle of that stitch. We will yarn over and we will pull through that stitch. So now we have 2 loops on our hook. First one represents our first stitch. The second loop represents our second stitch. So now we will go over to this next one. Do you see that middle gap right here? We're going to go right into that at an angle. That's our third stitch. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to pull that through. So we just completed 3 stitches. And I know it seems like we only completed 2, but that very first stitch of your return pass, that first loop, you don't have to do a thing. You just go right into that second stitch. Because what we need is we need all 10 loops on our hook to complete the return pass. And once we complete the return pass, then we complete a row. So now you can see that this yarn, that loop, is right in that third stitch. So now we're going to go over to our fourth stitch right here. We're going to go right in the middle of that at an angle. We're going to yarn over and we're going to pull that through. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 completed stitches. So now we go over to our next one, which is our 5th one, right here. Go right in between those 2 bars. Yarn over, and we will pull that through. And this is our forward pass. And to complete a row, you have to complete a forward pass and a return pass to complete a row. So now here's our 6th stitch. So we're going to insert it right in between those 2 vertical bars, yarn over and pull that through, and that's our 6th stitch. 1, 2, 3, hold on. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we go over here to our 7th one, right there. We'll go right through it. And yarn over and pull that through. Then we go to our next stitch, right here. Go right through it. Yarn over, pull this through. And this is the knit stitch for Tunisian crochet. So now we come over here, just, spread those apart. We see that bar, the front and back bar. That's our stitch. So go right to the middle of that. Pull that through. Now we're at our last stitch. This is our last stitch. So you just pull that loop over to the side. That's where we need to go into. In between those 2 bars there. We'll also go in between these 2 loops. So that's what we want to look like that chain. That's what we want. Let me show you that again. On the very last stitch, so you'll see our 2 vertical bars there. We want to go into that and under that last loop. That way it looks like a chain. So when we build it up, it will have chains on the side of it. So just remember that for your last stitch. You want it to look like that with two loops there. So you will yarn over and you will pull through those 2 there, and we just completed our forward pass for row 2. Okay, so let's make sure we have 10 loops on our hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we did it right. Now, do you remember what I said for row 1? When you're doing your return pass, this first stitch here, for our return pass, we are going to yarn over and only pull through 1 loop. And see, this creates our chains here. Now for every stitch after that, you will yarn over and pull through 2 loops to complete the return pass for that stitch. So we will yarn over and we will pull through 2 loops. We will yarn over, pull through 2 loops. 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 yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. We just completed row 2. So now we will continue to repeat row 2 for however many rows it takes, and then once we're ready to decrease, going here, I will show you how to do that as well. So let's go ahead and begin, since you know the basics of how to do this. Actually, let me show you one more time. And you can start to see these bars really clear now, can't you? You can see it a whole lot better. Excuse me. So we have our first stitch here, our second stitch, our third stitch, our fourth, our fifth, our sixth, our seventh. So you can see this really well now, these bars that we will be working into. So let me go ahead and show you one more time. So we already have our first stitch. So since we have our first loop on our hook, this is our first stitch here with those 2 vertical bars. So we do not enter into that one because we already have our loop going through that. Always remember that. But we go into the second one. See those 2 vertical bars? So we will go into that second one at an angle. We will yarn over and pull that through. So now we have 2 loops. Those are 2 completed stitches now. So we will go to the third, right here. So we will go through that third stitch and yarn over and pull that through. And it's that easy. So now we need to go through our fourth one. Here's our fourth one. So we go through that, yarn over, pull that through. So now we go to our fifth one, go through that, yarn over, pull that through, and that's all we do. So here's our next one, and this is the knit stitch. So our next one, go right between those 2 vertical bars, through that gap, and pull that through. Here's our next vertical bar, our next stitch. Just yarn over and pull that through. Here's our next one. We go through that, pull that through. So now we're at our last stitch here. Actually, let's count these. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we know that we're on our last stitch here. So here's our gap, here's our last stitch. We want to go through that vertical bar and behind that loop, and that looks like a chain. And if you look, there's that back vertical bar right there. So just remember that last stitch on the forward pass, you'll go through that vertical bar and under this loop right here. You will yarn over and pull that through. So we completed the the forward pass. I'm sorry, we completed the forward pass for row 3. So to do the return pass, we will yarn over and only pull through one loop. But for the rest of the chains, for the rest of the loops, we will yarn over and pull through 2. So yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Last stitch, yarn over, pull through 2. So we completed 3 rows. Now, what I recommend is with this Tunisian crochet, it is hard to count your rows. So when we start to do this, it's quite hard to count your stitches by looking at this, because these chains are so small. They're so little. So what I did when I made this, each row I completed, I wrote it down. You know, just took a piece of paper and, you know, and wrote it down. Okay? Or what you can do is you can get one of these little things here, and this helps you keep track of your stitch count. So I have 0 here and 3, and it moves like this, and then this side moves like this. So each row you complete, either write it down or do this. So we completed row 3. And if you need to take a break, once you complete this return pass for the row, once you complete that row, you can either stretch this out like that and leave it so it doesn't come apart, or this is a knitting accessory for knitting needles, because this is just like knitting. So what you could do is you open this knitting tool and you can slide it through those bars. You see how it's in between those stitches, those bars? You can slide that through just like that. And this holds your place just like that, so it doesn't come apart. So as you see, you have your first stitch, your second, your third, fourth, fifth, sixth, excuse me, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th.